Hey guys, it's Matt Hogan with Element Real Estate, and we have sweeping new law in California that's going to effectively allow every single family home to be converted into 3 units faster and cheaper and with less hurdles. Here's the laws. I've read all of them. Today we're going to dive into the law. We're going to find out what they mean for California homeowners. So sit tight and check it out. Thanks. All right, so here we are. We're going to dive into these new laws in California that are affecting granny units, which are officially known as ADUs, accessory dwelling units. First, I want to throw a quick disclaimer out there. I'm not an attorney. I've read all the laws. I am a realtor, a broker. But before you go and fork out $300,000 to build a detached unit in your backyard, consult with an attorney, consult with a land use expert, consult with your local city or county organizations, and feel free to read the laws and interpret them yourself. So what we're talking about here, we're talking about Assembly Bill 670, 881, 587, 68, and California Senate Bill 13. These are laws that were signed into law by Gavin Newsom and became effective January 1st, 2020, which for me now was yesterday, and they're big changes. So let me tell you what's going on. I mentioned it sounds a little dramatic. Every single family home can be converted into 3 units. But it is true. So what does it mean? Well, you got your main home. You will be allowed to create a detached or attached second unit, ADU, accessory dwelling unit, and nobody will be able to prohibit you from building a unit up to 800 square foot if it's a 1-bedroom or a studio, or up to 1,000 square foot if it's more than one bedroom. Now, in addition to that detached unit that you can build, California state law also allows every homeowner to build a JADU, basically short for junior accessory dwelling unit, from existing square footage in the home. So that means you can convert an existing area home, you can convert the garage, and the JADU, there's an allowance in there to extend your square footage for that unit up to 150 square feet. So that's the bottom line, but there are many substantial changes to make this a lot easier for California homeowners. And I should say that the impetus for this, as I understand it, certainly a shortage of affordable housing, and there are strong efforts happening on a local and on a state level to create more housing supply so that people can afford to live in the communities that they work in. And this is a part of a larger effort to create housing supply. So that's the impetus for these new laws. Let's dive into it. No size restriction. No local government, no city government, no county government can say, we'll allow you to create an ADU, but only up to 600 square foot, or only up to 30% of the size of your original house. Those are out the window. Definitively, at least 800 square foot or 1,000 square foot for more than 1 bedroom. The local governments can choose to go above these numbers, but nobody can prevent you from building a unit up to those sizes. You can convert a garage. So many local governments would not allow you to convert a garage into a second dwelling, a second rentable dwelling and accessory dwelling unit without building another garage. That's out the window. So you now can convert your garage into a second unit, and you don't need to build replacement parking as a result of doing that. So that's another big nugget here. No parking requirements if you live within 1/2 mile of public transit. Basically, if you build a unit, you would have been required to make sure there's dedicated areas on your property for people to park. If you live within 1/2 mile of public transit, you don't need to do that anymore. No, these next 2 ones are big. No lot size, lot coverage requirements. So basically, there's 2 things. One's called a lot coverage, the other one's called floor area ratio. And essentially what they do is they limit the amount of house you can build on a given lot. Without getting too much into detail, if I'm using the lot coverage speed limit, most ordinances allow for 35% is a common one, meaning that you can't cover more than 35% of your lot with a structure. Structure would be a house, garage, any sort of structure. Since many homes were built to max out that number, you have a 5,000 square foot lot, therefore you can't cover more than 1,750 square feet, which would be 35% of 5,000 with a structure. Well, if I max that out, then I've got no room to build an ADU because an ADU would exceed that max. Those are out the window also. So regardless of where you are relative to your lot coverage ratio, your floor area ratio, these don't come into play with building an accessory dwelling unit. And here's probably the biggest, one of the biggest changes here. There's something called setbacks. Setbacks are the distance by which you need to stay away from your property lines. And they differ city by city, county by county, but most of them are in the 5 to 10 foot on the side and around, call it 20 foot on the back, meaning you can't build anything permanent within 20 feet of your rear property line or within 5 feet of your side property lines, in some cases 10 feet. Again, those numbers change, but most zones prohibit you from building close to your property line. Right now, it's 4 foot. The new law says that instead of having to have 20 foot of space in your backyard, for an ADU, you now only need to have 4 feet, which, again, most people will have built all the way to that 20-foot line and then have a backyard that they can't build an ADU in. Now the new law says you can build all the way up to 4 feet from your back property line and 4 feet from your side property lines. Essentially what that does is it frees up a bunch of backyard space to build a detached unit if you wanted, that was otherwise restricted from doing so. So rear side setbacks 4 feet statewide. No discretionary review. Basically what this means is if you filled out an application to build a second unit, some local city or county organizations would have discretionary review where they would either have an architectural review or they would have some sort of discretionary items for them to either approve or deny your permit to build that ADU. That's done. The reviews need to be, the word they use is ministerial, which basically means that if you hit the check boxes you need to hit, if you comply with the 4 foot setback and with 800 or 1,000, and there's a couple other check boxes, you will definitively be allowed to build your ADU. So there is no discretion in saying, you know, we like your ADU, we'll let you build it. We don't like the way it looks, we're not going to let you build it. You will be allowed to build it if it hits the punch list that it needs to hit. 60-day process. Everybody's heard about how permits can take 3 months, 4 months, 12 months, 18 months to get, and all the hoops you have to jump through. Once you submit your application and it's received, they owe you an answer within 60 days. So this is huge. 60-day turnaround, for some of you, it might seem like a long time, but compared to what it normally is, that's a very, very short amount of time. I'm going to jump to this one, lower fees. And for ADUs that are less than 750 square foot, no impact fees. This is important because sometimes the impact fees, which are, I'm not going to get into them, but there's a bunch of fees that you will have to pay to build your unit. They can be as high as $20,000, $30,000, $35,000 in aggregate. They're going to be zero for units less than 750 square foot. And for units more than 750 square foot, they will be commensurate to the size of the existing home on the property. More on that later. No owner occupancy until 2025. So there were a lot of cities and counties out there that said, we'll allow you to build an ADU, but the owner, the person who owns the property, has to live in the main house or they have to live in the ADU, one or the other. And the state of California has gotten rid of that. So you can build a second unit and you can rent both the second unit and the main unit out, or if you have a JADU, you can rent all three of them out at least until January 1st, 2025. The reason they're doing that is, again, they're trying to create housing supply for people who otherwise could not afford to live in our communities. So if they're not requiring the owners of the properties to live on premises, well, that creates another rental unit for people who couldn't otherwise afford to live in the community. So essentially, it's increasing the supply of rental units, which is part of the objective of the affordable housing objective. So no owner occupancy until 2025. We spoke about the lower fees. Unpermitted ADU amnesty to 2025. So this is an interesting one. What it says is, For people who have an existing ADU, and if your ADU on your property, your grand unit is not up to code, or maybe you received a red tag, which is a notice that says, hey, you know, you didn't get a permit for your property, you need to go and create it up to code. For all violations that aren't relating to health and safety items, which if you want to know what those are, you can hit me up offline and I'll tell you what they are. But for all items other than health and safety related code violations, you can defer having to do anything with your ADU until January 1st, 2025. Essentially what this does is it creates an amnesty program for existing ADUs, preventing them from being shut down. So that's a big one, because there's a lot of units out there that they may be fine from a health and safety perspective. They may have been built to code, but never, the owners who built them never got a permit. Well, this defers all of those efforts to address those items, to bring them up to code, at least for 5 years, until 2025, January 1. Couple caveats here. Here's the kicker. If you build one of these units, you must lease at least 30-day leases. What this means is no Airbnb, no VRBO. You will not be able to get a permit for Airbnb and VRBOs, and the reason is, again, they're trying to create this housing supply for people to live in the communities that they live in, that they work in, that their kids are in. And if everybody went out tomorrow and turned their home into 3 units and turned them all into Airbnbs and VRBOs, not that I have anything against them, quite the contrary, you wouldn't have any extra housing supply for the people these programs are intended for. So if you do endeavor to get a detached unit, a grand unit, an ADU, a junior ADU, convert your garage, just know that you won't be allowed officially to short-term rental it, to vacation rental it. The rental terms will need to be at least 30 days or longer. So I think I covered it all. There's a lot there. There's a lot more I didn't cover for the sake of time, for the sake of boring you guys. If you do have questions on this stuff, feel free to hit me up offline, direct message me, call me, email me. I don't have all the answers, but I have quite a few of them, so I'll try to answer what I can, and for that I can't, I'll point in the right direction. This is Matt Hogan signing off. Enjoy a great, amazing 2020 full of abundance. Thank you, and goodbye.